Stuff. Wolf Pack, what is going on? It's your boy, the Wolf of Roto Street. RotoStreetJournal.com. We breed and feed you fantasy wolves here with a free agency rapid reaction and then, of course, a fallout draft as we do every Monday at 4 p.m. hitting the draft boards. But, man, there is a lot to debrief really quickly before we can get into the draft zone. And I'll just be straight up honest. I just got out of my school day. I haven't had a chance to really look at the phone. I got home 20 minutes ago. And bam, there is just a million and one things. So this isn't going to be like our in-depth free agency, knowing all the stats and vacated volume and knowing it by complete heart in that sense. But we are definitely going to dive into our just gut reaction to what is going on, because there is some crazy signings, some crazy movements that are going to definitely impact my best ball rankings and, of course, the redraft rankings as well. My man Mo, I know you've been actually able to track this a little bit more than I have since, again, I'm just getting right out of work here. I can't wait to dive into this with you. How you doing, though, man?
I'm not too bad, but yeah, I've been kept busy all day. I've been keeping my eyes glued to Twitter, all day, X, whatever you want to call it, but just kind of trying to keep up with everything that's been happening. And like you said, since you haven't really been able to keep your eyes on it, I'm going to kind of guide us through some of the bigger moves that we had. So you want to start out with the quarterbacks?
Let's do it. Let's rip through them.
Perfect. So the biggest one was obviously Kirk Cousins heading to Atlanta. He's going to team up with Bijan Robinson, Kyle Pitts, and Drake London. The deal's 4 years, $180 million, and they've locked up their hopefully franchise guy over in ATL. The next biggest, you can debate between these two, but I think Russ to the Steelers is a bigger move. They're signing him for 1 year and just a shade over $1 million, with the Broncos making up the rest of his, I believe, $38 million salary. And it's an obvious quarterback upgrade there in Pittsburgh from the Kenny Pickett experiment. And then we've got Baker Mayfield an extension with the Bucs. They keep Baker Mayfield and Mike Evans in town. So we've got pretty much the same offense rolling back out in Tampa Bay next year. But what are your quick reactions to any of those moves?
Yeah, you got to start with Cousins and the Falcons, just given the fantasy firepower there that could finally be unlocked. We've been tortured with the Desmond Ridder experience, the Marcus Mariota experience for years on end. I really do think Drake London has the upside. I actually tweeted this out just a week ago. Drake London will be a top 10 wide receiver. Kyle Pitts will have top 5 tight end upside, and Bijan Robinson should be the running back 2 in fantasy if a healthy Kirk Cousins lands up there. Now, there's definitely some big ifs, but the biggest if has been crossed off. Kirk Cousins is now there. Now, it does matter what his health is, and I was listening to the fact that this was his plant foot, and that might impact the recovery in terms of Rodgers was not the plant foot, and maybe that's why he's able to go so much faster. Who knows? Achilles used to be a death knell for any position, though, so it is still up in the air what type of Kirk Cousins we're going to be getting here. But, man, if this is even an 85% Kirk Cousins, that is a 10,000 times upgrade to what they've been dealing with. So I am fully with, as soon as Cousins is in there and playing well, Drake London, top 10 wide receiver upside. I'll be looking at him. In these best ball drafts, he's already going 4th-ish round. I would be looking at the mid-third, maybe even early 3rd round. We've seen, I know he's not Justin Jefferson, but time and time again, Kirk Cousins, he kind of reminds me of Stafford in that sense, where he just elevates the wide receivers around him because he racks up yardage like no other. And I think with those weapons, Kyle Pitts, his next TJ Hawkinson, a more athletic version of him. I've been out on Kyle Pitts for the last 2 years. You know that. We had a great debate about it all last year. I ended up being right in that sense. But I've just been waiting for the right quarterback. Those missed air yards. I mean, we look at that. It's historic how many missed connections that this guy had, that Kirk Cousins, when healthy, will be knocking those down. And plus Jonnu Smith now out of the way there as well. So I think that is the biggest move. You mix in the fact that Zach Robinson, one of my favorite coordinator hirings, coming from that McVay system. So we know it's going to be a marriage of the run and the pass. They definitely used Kyron Williams is that workhorse back. The really only thing missing for Bijan Robinson last year was consistent, steady volume, and then also a quarterback that could get them down the field and in the red zone. With those two boxes checked likely now here with a stable offensive coordinator that used Kyron Williams, the best usage beside only Christian McCaffrey last year. If Bijan gets that as a 10,000 times the athlete that Kyron Williams is, and they're going to have more red zone volume, I stand by the fact that he should be a top 5 overall pick now in fantasy. Again, it's going to depend on Kirk Cousins being healthy, but that is by far, and there's some big running back news we're about to hit, but Cousins going to Atlanta, that is the move of the day. That is the most important. I think it's crazy. I think it's the most impactful. I'd love to know in the comments. We got a good amount of you guys here with us. Let us know what you guys think of my take here. Of course, any thumbs up buttons, likes, shares, retweets are so helpful here as well. So please do consider doing that as well. To me, the Cousins move is huge, though. Am I overreacting, or is this like a situation that could just go bananas now with him there?
I was about to say the same thing. I don't think you're overreacting at all. I think this is going to be a fantasy bonanza, but I'm just I'm trying my best to pump the brakes a little bit here, because I know that this is a fantasy godsend for London, Pitts, and Robinson. But I mean, these guys are going to spike up draft boards. They're going to be flying, and I'm just going to want to wait and see where they settle out, because I know for a fact at least one of these guys, probably two of them, are going to be they're going to be at too high of a price that I'm just not going to be interested in, just because of the, that off-season hype that always pumps up people to an uncomfortable level that you just are kind of on edge about drafting them. And I have a pretty strong feeling that that's going to be the case here with these guys from Atlanta, just because they've got a lot of young, talented skill guys, and Kirk Cousins being the consistent veteran that can deliver the ball to them and run a consistent offense. So I'm excited, but I'm just trying to not get too excited about it.
Oh, I think you're not getting excited enough then. The only reason that I could see this not going swimmingly is if he's not fully healthy. And it is an Achilles tear. We have to factor that in. But I'm going to be aggressive. I am all in on this young talent. I do think Kirk Cousins can lead them to the promised land. I'm so excited to see what happens there. In terms of the other ones, I do want to get to running back, so I don't want to spend a ton of time. I do agree with you. As bad as Russ was last year, there was no quarterback worse than Kenny Pickett in the Steelers situation. So whether Deontay Johnson gets traded or remains there, I do think that's going to be a great fit. If he's stuck there over the middle there with Russ, he can deliver the football there accurately. For so many years, the Moonball Russ show was beautiful. And if he can reignite that type of moonball, what better than George Pickens to streak down the field and go get those? So I do think it is a big upgrade for those guys. Just eyeball-wise, though, I don't believe in Russell Wilson. I'm not going to be overly invested in going after that stack like I am going to be with the Falcons. I again, all in on the Falcons here. I'm not going to be super high here. It's Arthur Smith's offense, the one that we're all trying to run from already. I don't know that I really want to get too into this, but of course it's not worse. So they will be getting upgrades in my rankings. I just don't think I'm going to be pushing them too high. But I love the fact that Baker's back there with Mike Evans as well when we get to receivers, running that back, getting that offense back. Those two together, Mike Evans, wide receiver 4 in fantasy last year. Baker for the second half of the year, too. He finished top 10 and really top 7 when you look at the last 4 or 5 games and carrying over the playoffs. It seemed like they really only started to really hit that groove by the end of the year as an entire unit, using Chris Godwin the right way. And then they really started to click. I could see Baker legitimately having that top 12 type of upside for the rest of the year. He's going to be getting drafted as a quarterback 20 to 25 range. I think he's going to be one of the best punting quarterbacks that you can go for. I think there's no reason to expect anything but what we saw. Losing Dave Canales, maybe the play caller departing, does hurt this offense overall, but I don't think it's going to have that much of an impact. I like this Liam Cohen guy they brought in. So I'm expecting big things from Baker, from Mike Evans. I'm glad they're running it back. I think it's great for this overall offense. And what we saw towards the end of the year when they really started to click, especially in the playoffs, I think that's going to carry over. Any knee-jerk reactions to that before we move to the running backs?
Not really. I think you hit the key points, but I also am a fan of the continuity in Tampa Bay. But even outside of the wide receivers, I think it's great for Rachaad White. I mean, he was being heavily used in the receiving game with Baker Mayfield, and he could get it done both on the ground and through the air. And Mike Evans, he's getting up there in age, but like you said, towards the end of the season, they showed some consistency. And I remember halfway through the year, there was all that stuff with Chris Godwin not getting used enough. But I think they found their sweet spot, and I think this is going to be a quality offense heading into the next season.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm just looking now, too. Baker Mayfield was number 9 in overall passing yards and top 5 in air yards. So they definitely were slinging that thing over the entire season. So I'm pumped to see him back. I do think that continuity will be big there for him. Very, very quality stuff there at the quarterback position. Now, running backs, we knew that was going to be one of the craziest points of free agency. Ton of very valuable openings there and a very valuable market to fill some of those spots. Now, there's definitely still some big open ones, and we'll summarize those at the end, where there's still a bunch of names and spots we're looking to see. But there's been some big movement. Why don't you let me know, Mo, who are some of the biggest names you've seen on the move at running back?
So this is in terms of all the positional groups, this is the position where there's big turnover among the big names. We've got Saquon Barkley on the move, Tony Pollard on the move, DeAndre Swift on the move, and Josh Jacobs on the move. So I'll start with the bigger names, and I think all of those four are pretty significant people in fantasy football. But Barkley to the Eagles on a 3-year, $38 million deal to complete the juggernaut offense, as I like to call it, in Philadelphia. Then we've got Tony Pollard heading to Tennessee to join with Will Levis and DeAndre Hopkins, 3 years for $24 million. DeAndre Swift heading to Chicago with the Bears for another deal of 3 years and $24 million. Josh Jacobs is heading to Green Bay, and then when we started recording, there was no information on the length or amount on this deal. And then some of the smaller ones, we've got Antonio Gibson heading to New England, and then it got announced as we were recording this, Devin Singletary will be leaving Houston and going to the Giants. So we can head back to those larger ones. First off, Saquon Barkley. He goes from one of the worst offensive lines in all of football. The Giants offensive line ranked third worst by PFF last year to one of the best, third best ranked by PFF. And we know they're going to be without Jason Kelce, but I think this is a smash spot for Saquon Barkley. What do you think?
Oh, yeah. I think this is as good of a landing spot as you could have asked for, other than maybe the TD equity. You want to say it gets hurt in a way because Jalen Hurts is just so good with those double-digit rushing touchdowns in back-to-back seasons, the tush push and all that. And yet, even still, how could you have lower touchdown equity than what you had with the New York Giants, one of the most abysmal teams, bottom 3 in total points scored per game, now getting an offense that has routinely ranked top 5 since Jalen Hurts has been taken over in there. And as you mentioned, the line, you cannot overstate how big this is. Saquon's never ran behind a good line in his entire career with the Giants. They've always been bottom 5. He's going to see so much more space than he's used to because of the line, because of the surrounding weaponry around him, because this overall offense is just going to be so damn explosive that, yeah, I get there's some metrics about Barkley last year that don't look great. The yards after contact per attempt and explosive run rates. None of that stuff looked great, but I don't know that we can fairly judge this guy given the fantasy environment he's been forced to play in. So moving to a team with such a good line and such a good surrounding cast, I think it's going to do wonders for him. And even if he does cap out at 8 to 10 maximum touchdowns, which I can't really project him for more than that, I think the efficiency is going to spike in such a big way that we could see Saquon push for 1,500 to even maybe 2,000 total yards in this offense. And just overall, it makes the team a beast. He is one of the better receiving backs in the league, no doubt about it. No Christian McCaffrey, but I mean, you look at his rookie season, he was almost 1,000 receiving yards that year. This guy can absolutely get it done. He can run the entire route tree from the running back spot. So I'm very intrigued to see how this all works out. I think it's a great fit and definitely a big plus to his value. In terms of some of the other ones, we did see Tony Pollard going to the Titans. I'm a psycho, and I read all the coaches' transcripts from the combine, and Brian Callahan did emphasize he wanted a committee backfield. It's part of why I've been avoiding Tajay Spears in these early best ball drafts. And now they drafted Tony Pollard, which just seems a little bit redundant in terms of a smaller size back, but good speed, explosive guy. I have no idea how this is going to then rotate out. Like, it's one thing when you have Derrick Henry and you got a beast and you know he's the short yardage early down guy, but Spears will get the receiving work. I don't know what to make of this backfield now. I wasn't really in on Spears, and I'm definitely not going to be on now that Tony Pollard is there as well. I do think Spears probably brings a little bit more explosivity, unless it was that tightrope surgery in Pollard. We did see, the best graded rusher over the last 5 weeks by PFF, even though his yards per carry didn't go up all that much. There's things that pointed to him not being healthy till week 10 and then finally getting it together. But I still, just eyeball-wise, he never looked like the Tony Pollard the year before where I loved him. I couldn't get enough of Tony Pollard that season. So fun to watch. We just never saw that breakaway speed. So this is a backfield that just, to me, feels like an avoid. Brian Callahan's dad coming over there to make the offensive line gel and zone blocking scheme, and all that's going to be great. It is going to work well. I just think the volume's going to be too inconsistent there. So downgrade for Pollard, for Tajay Spears. I think that's going to be a bit of a mess, and it's just going to be so undefined as to what their roles are. Josh Jacobs, though, I really do love this one. You wrote the note, becomes part of a blossoming offense there, and I couldn't agree more. Obviously Aaron Jones didn't have the season that many people were hoping for last year, but by the end of the season, when he finally kind of got his health under him, he became one of the best backs in fantasy. And over that playoff stretch run, he was an absolute animal. So I looked at his game logs really quick before we got started here, and he closed out the season 14.9, 14, 19.1, 32, and 16 fantasy points over those last 6 weeks when he finally got acclimated. Jordan Love was the number 2 quarterback in fantasy over those final 7 weeks as well. And it seemed like he's just kind of taken that next step in this overall offense. I had been drafting a decent amount of Aaron Jones, assuming he was going to be the lead back in this ascending offense. He's now been informed that he's going to be released and likely to be picked up quickly is the early report there. I love this Josh Jacobs move, though. He can get it done as a receiver, but certainly a beastly running back and younger at this stage of his career than Aaron Jones. So to be a centerpiece in an ascending offense with PFF's top-graded offensive line in many categories last year, I think this is a slam dunk for Josh Jacobs. He's going to again go down as one of the biggest winners alongside Saquon Barkley. I think both of those two are enormous winners here. Aaron Jones definitely gets a downgrade till we know where he lands, but I can't imagine him landing in a situation that would have been better than the Green Bay lead back. I think this is a smash for Jacobs. Do you agree with me?
Yeah, so I actually spent about an hour yesterday looking into Aaron Jones and getting myself excited about him just being a part of this Packers offense. Down the stretch last year, we saw the Packers lean on Aaron Jones throughout the playoffs, and I believe it was 6 straight games that he finished to close out the season with at least 100 all-purpose yards, and it might have been even more. So I think without Jones in the picture and Dillon's on the free agency market, I haven't really heard anything about him. I don't know if you have, but if this is Jacobs' backfield, this is going to be great. They've got a young quarterback. They've got a wide receiver room full of young guys on rookie contracts. This is an offense I want to invest in, and if Josh Jacobs is going to be the only guy there, this is a premium landing spot for Josh Jacobs.
Yeah, couldn't be better for him. Couldn't be much better for Saquon Barkley as well. Pollard, mixed bag. And as you mentioned, DeAndre Swift going to Chicago, kind of an ugly backfield, but there's no reason he can't carve himself out a clear lead role there. He's been an elite receiver when leaned upon in that type of role. Not a situation that I love, though, leaving it. If he wasn't all that great in Philadelphia, I don't expect him to suddenly get a big upgrade here with the Bears. It is a downgrade for a Roschon, for a Khalil Herbert. I do expect Swift to take over there. The fact that, I always do like when a division rival goes and signs a back that they face multiple times a year. So clearly the Bears saw something they like, but I'm not going to be going over the moon. DeAndre Swift's been going around pick 100 right now in best ball drafts, and I think that's where he slides in. It's probably still with this news, maybe even a slight downgrade, given the fact he could have returned to Philadelphia or landed in a situation like the Chiefs or a more appealing situation. So, yeah, I don't love that one. Gibson going to the Pats. I like the player. I've been actually drafting him a lot in hopes of him landing with the Chiefs or landing with Buffalo or one of these explosive offense situations. To land with the New England is just gross. It's brutal. They have used running backs well in the passing game, but it definitely dings Ramondre's receiving upside a bit. I'm not that intrigued by Gibson. And CJ did comment in here. Apparently, Gus Edwards has landed. The Gus bus is headed to Harbaugh, to LA, to the Chargers. He reunites with Greg Roman, a guy who drafted him. It's one of those situations where Gus Edwards is going pick 180, 190 right now. Unsexy, right where he was going last year. He finished with top 3 in total touchdowns among running backs. Ended up being one of the best picks you could have made. I doubt that this is the last move LA is going to make. I imagine I keep drafting Blake Corum and the idea that Harbaugh is going to want to reunite with his boy. But there's going to be touchdown upside in a Greg Roman beautiful run scheme in LA. I hate Greg Roman for most parts of the offense, but for running backs, it's a gold mine. And so Gus Bus has to get some heavier steam here when he's going in the last 3 rounds of drafts. If that's going to stay, I'm going to be hammering him in those last rounds nearly every single time. Do you have any rapid reactions to any of the other guys I brought up before we move to receiver?
Yeah, Gus Bus. I mean, it is what it is. You can grab him here and there in the last couple of rounds of your drafts, but like you said, I think there's maybe there's zero chance that they don't add someone else. Someone else will be in that LA backfield, and from what it's looking by them signing Gus Bus, it's just seeming like it's going to be one of those backfields that is just a nightmare to pick through every single week, and you're never going to really know unless someone goes down with an injury. So he could be valuable if this offense works out under Harbaugh and someone else goes down. But with the Edwards signing, this is shaping up to be one of the nastier backfields in the NFL, in my opinion. I mean, you never really know. I haven't seen anything about the numbers. They could have brought him in to purely just be a backup, but he showed that he's competent and can make plays. he's not he's not going to elevate the offense by any means, but he can contribute on an NFL offense, and I think that the Chargers are going to use him in that way.
Yeah, and this one also just coming in from our guy CJ, who's nailing the Twitter right now. Texans could be a team to watch out for when it comes to Aaron Jones per NFL Network. Whew, talk about landed on your feet. I just said there's not too many spots I could imagine being better for Aaron Jones than the ascending Packers offense, where he was already doing some damage to close out the year. Well, Texans might be one of those few spots that are better. And that does kind of wrap up some of the spots I wanted to just mention that we in terms of big question marks remaining: Dallas, Baltimore, Houston, and the Chargers. Yeah, Edwards going there, but that does not preclude another stud potentially going there and becoming the monster, and Edwards just be more of a depth piece. So those four backfields, again, the Cowboys, the Ravens, the Texans, and then possibly the Chargers as well, are all wide open right now. There's still guys like Derrick Henry out there that haven't been signed, older, but still could get it done now. Aaron Jones is one of those free agent backs. So there's a lot to still sift through at the running back position as free agency continues to go. Definitely going to be keeping our eyes peeled there, but some huge dominoes did fall today. We're going to move on to wide receivers. But again, guys, there's almost 300 a year. I love to see it. Thank you so much for coming in for our rapid reactions here. If you don't mind hitting that thumbs up, the likes, the shares, the retweets, comment on in what your thoughts are. Let's get some engagement going here. Let's continue to grow the show. Thank you again for being here as we rapidly react here and then kick off a draft with all of these new developments in mind. But now we are moving on over to the wide receiver position, which isn't quite as exciting at running back, but some big moves have still happened. Evans returning to Tampa Bay happened a couple days ago. I know Judy got traded recently, but there's been a few other movement today, Mike. What else do we got going on?
Yeah, so the biggest move of today, just because it's not an extension and someone is actually switching up teams, is Gabe Davis to the Jaguars. This wide receiver room is a room that I've been keeping my eye on throughout the offseason. I mean, we're only maybe 6 weeks into the offseason, but I've been keeping my eye on it because Calvin Ridley's also a free agent. Now, the initial reports are that the Jaguars are still going to try and keep Calvin Ridley, but that's seeming increasingly less likely now that Gabe Davis is in Jacksonville for 3 years, $39 million. And if he stays, if Ridley is gone and Davis stays as the top outside option for Trevor Lawrence, I mean, I don't see why you're not getting excited about him as the only true outside receiver. I mean, Kirk plays in the slot. I don't know why you wouldn't be grabbing Gabe Davis, but I'm going to be waiting to see until how things shake out with Calvin Ridley. Supposedly the Jags are still going to try and grab him, but I'm not really buying it. I'll see it when I believe it. I'm more led to believe that Calvin Ridley is going to end up somewhere else. Kendrick Bourne was extended by the Patriots. That doesn't really move the needle for me. But Jerry Jeudy traded to the Browns. For me, this is exciting. I mean, they really have to make it work with Watson in Cleveland, and you can tell that they know that. They're adding pieces around him because if this deal doesn't work out, the Browns are going to look really, really bad. And in my opinion, too, this is Judy's last chance for me. I mean, he was a massive prospect coming out. I mean, everyone talking about how he's going to be one of the next game changers in the NFL, and he just really hasn't done it in his career with the Broncos. So I'm trying to get myself excited about Judy just because of the new environment, fresh situation, a quarterback who has been great in the past, but it's hard for me to get excited. But I think I'll end up, just because I think their prices will be pretty cheap, I think I'll end up with some Jerry Jeudy this year.
Yeah. So in quick rapid reactions to all that, the Gabe Davis news, to me, the biggest piece of that is actually not even Davis, the Jaguars, Trevor Lawrence. It's who now comes into that number 2 role for the Bills. I know Khalil Shakir, he had some good games last year, certainly when Davis was banged up and pressed in the playoffs. I like the kid. I think he's a great number 3. There were some rumblings. I think it was Matthew Berry's article where he said after he talked to people in the Bills that they were expecting him to remain that 3 and that they were definitely more invested in those rookie receivers of this year. And that's why in these early best ball drafts, I am definitely hammering those rookie receivers that might end up falling like a Xavier Worthy and that speed, or, whether they go for the big body, a Kean Coleman later in the rounds, whoever ends up being there, like get another big body that could potentially there. Corley, Malachi Corley. There's so many intriguing. This rookie class, a ton of people have hyped it up as one of the best, as deep as a few years ago when we had just hit after hit in that Jefferson class. A lot of people saying that this is very, very similar to that one. So to me, the biggest news isn't necessarily Gabe Davis. It's who's going to take his spot in the Bills offense and can he do more with it? Because I look at Gabe Davis, and if he didn't get it done with a cannon-armed Josh Allen, when he was the clear number 2 guy, played even more snaps than Stephon Diggs when he was healthy, I just don't think he's ever going to start to steadily get it done. Now, maybe in best ball, still a guy we can rely on, but if you had him in redraft, you know what the experience is, and I don't think it's going to start steadying out because he's with the Jaguars here, especially if they do sign Ridley, but even if not, I'm not banking on anything. I do like that it moves Christian Kirk more so inside where he does his best damage and inside had his best fantasy success. To me, Davis, it's more about what he leaves behind than him himself. And I think Judy's honestly probably the same way. I really like Cortland Sutton. I feel like he always gets undervalued every year. I had him on a ton of best ball teams, and you would have been shocked how many weeks he ended up being in my lineup last year just because he caught so many touchdowns. It was never a huge 30-point day that pushed me over the edge, but 15 points, 12 points, 17 points. He was consistently, I believe he finished with 10 to 12 touchdowns on the season, and now you remove Judy. I love it. Plus Marvin Mims, who Scott Barrett has some great tweets about how he had, 7 of the 9 most explosive plays for the Broncos all last year, even though he only played about 25% of the snaps and barely sniffed the field. Anytime he was out there, he was making stuff happen. And we had, before the Judy trade, Sean Payton at his press conference, like I said, I read every single transcript like a nutbag, and he hyped up Marvin Mims. He said the only thing in his way was playing time because they had such good receivers around him. But when they used him, he was very impressed with what Mims did. And I still think he should have been on the field even over Judy, given how he was performing. But now he doesn't have that obstacle in his way. He should be ideally a full-time player here. And we've seen Sean Payton, when he has the right quarterback, when he has the right guys around him, especially those deep ball guys. I mean, you think like Kenny Stills and some of these names that he just used to perfection. Lance Moore, he just makes these nobodies into these monster receivers. So you give him an athlete like Mims, who was huge success when he was used last year. It doesn't matter who the quarterback is. We're not sure who's going to be slinging the rock there in Denver, but we've seen Sean Payton offenses just absolutely light the world on fire. So if they can get the right name there, I think Sutton, Mims, the last draft I did after they got traded, Sutton was still going around pick 100. Mims was still going around 160. I've taken him in every single draft since Judy got traded. I'm out on Judy. I've never been a Judy guy, and it's never burned me. So I'm not going to suddenly become a Judy guy when he's going to Deshaun Watson, who struggled to even make Cooper all that relevant. And I don't know that this impacts Cooper. He is still the number 1 guy there. It's more so Elijah Moore versus Judy and who's going to battle it out to underwhelm us with all the hype that they always generate. I want nothing to do with either of those guys. But yeah, Pittman coming back, obviously nice to have him back home, but he did his damage mostly with Minshew. So it will still be interesting to see how he does with Anthony Richardson as well. And then if T. Higgins gets that trade request or not, would obviously be good for Jamar Chase, for Higgins to land elsewhere. We shall see if they grant it. I don't know what a team was going to go after him, though, this year when you have such a deep receiver class to have to pay him a huge contract and give up a first and second when you got a potential T. Higgins from the top to bottom of the first 2 rounds here in this draft. I don't know. I don't necessarily see any team going crazy to try and trade for T. Higgins. As much as I like the guy, this is such a class that I think that's going to cap what that market ends up being, and I imagine he ends up just staying home there with Cincinnati. Any last thoughts before we move to tight ends and then get this draft fired up?
Yeah, we can talk about it a little bit during the draft, so I'll be brief here. But yeah, taking stabs at those receivers that are going around pick 100, the rookie receivers that are going around pick 100 in best ball. We text a little bit about it, but it's pretty great. I mean, with the Bills being linked to needing an outside receiver, and that'll almost 100% happen through the draft. The Chiefs are in need of an outside receiver, and that will once again almost 100% be through the draft. So just targeting these guys who are primarily outside receivers and just hoping you kind of hit the jackpot with the one that goes in the end of the first round, maybe the second round, to one of those high-powered offenses. So I'm a big fan of just taking stabs at those rookie receivers that are kind of going later, that might go late first, early second.
Absolutely. I think it's a great strategy. And rookies in general, I love targeting here, but when you get such a great receiver class, I had been trying to figure out what running backs might end up in some of these valuable holes, but it's known as a bad running back class. And so with you're seeing Jacobs get some big money and Saquon now filling up those big spots, there might be 1 or 2 that maybe one gets the lead guy in Dallas or something like that. So I do still like taking stabs at that, but I think it is making much more sense to go after the rookie receivers at this point. Who lands with the Chiefs? Who lands with the Bills? What if, A.D. Mitchell falls to one of them with that insane combine performance, things of that nature. I'm definitely going to be taking some stabs there. I don't think there's a ton to break down here at tight end. Dalton Schultz being the big one over the weekend, 3 years, 36 mil. It's just, to me, more of the same. I think it locks him in as like that kind of low-end tight end one. What he was last year is probably what we can expect. And then if Nico or Tank ever miss time, he kind of steps into that number 2 role. He becomes like a weekly top 6 to 8 tight end. So there's good value there. I do like him. He's going right now as a tight end 15 in best ball drafts. I think it's a good spot for him. Ultimately just kind of locks in that nice, secure safety blanket there. Other than that, I saw you wrote down Hunter Henry going back to the Pats until we know their quarterback. Doesn't really matter to me. The one other one that I'm intrigued by, and I'm going to let you get the one that you're intrigued by, but I like Jonnu Smith going to the Dolphins a lot. Mike McDaniels maximizes speed like no other, especially getting the ball in their hands and generating yak opportunities. And Jonnu Smith hit the fastest tight end miles per hour last year among the position. And now you get him with a schemer that has never really had that kind of move around fun tight end piece. They went out and signed him to a 2-year, $8.4 million, not a nothing contract by any means. I really like Jonnu Smith. I've always liked him since his Tennessee days. I thought the Pats gave him the short end of the stick. If anyone's going to really, of course, you're contending with Waddle and you're contending with, of course, Tyreek Hill, 2 of the bigger mouths to feed in the entire league. No doubt about it. He's at best the third, probably behind the running backs as well, Devon Achane. But still, this is such a juggernaut of an offense that is so good at generating speed in space and making sure they're used the best way, plus a red zone threat in an offense that is in the red zone far higher than the league average. I think this is a great move for Jonnu Smith. I've still seen him going around tight end 30 as the last couple of rounds. Even when I have 2 good tight ends, sometimes I just can't pass up that potential explosiveness because I know he's going to have some big days there in Miami. So Schultz obviously stays steady. Jonnu Smith of the Dolphins, I'm really intrigued by. You said there's one other tight end that's really catching your eye here, though.
Yeah, I like the Colby Parkinson deal over to the Rams. I'm not like anyone. I'm no Colby Parkinson truth or anything, but just situationally, I think it's a good spot. He gets a 3-year, $22.5 million deal. That's not nothing for a tight end. Hunter Henry signed for 3 years, $27 million. But so I think that's a reasonable commitment to Colby Parkinson from the Rams. And you couple that with the fact that we're not going to see Tyler Higbee on the field in Los Angeles for an extended period of time. He tore his ACL and MCL. I'm not sure what week it was, but it was mid-January. So we won't really know a true timetable for a couple of months at least, but a true return date for a couple of months at least. But he's going to miss a good chunk of the season. And I know some people have been putting some steam behind Davis Allen. I believe he was a rookie last year. Maybe he was a second year last year, a 5th-round pick, I want to say. But Colby Parkinson coming in as a free agent, he's shown to be not quality, but competent NFL tight end in Seattle. And with the commitment that they've shown with this 3-year deal, I think they're setting him up to be. He'll fall in behind Higbee once he returns, but in Higbee's absence, I think he can provide some pretty solid value on best ball teams.
Who was the rookie they had that kind of flashed last year? He's been getting drafted like the tight end 25 to 30 right now, and I was intrigued by the kid. Do you remember who I'm talking about at all?
Davis Allen.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Davis Allen. Yes, you mentioned him. I don't know. The Colby Parkinson, the money does. It's kind of crazy to me. I'm shocked by the money that he ended up getting. I don't know what's going on there or why, but ultimately, maybe it doesn't move the needle much for me at all, though.
Yeah, I mean, he's not someone I'm like flag planting or anything, but if you need one of those late round stabs at tight end, along with Jonnu Smith, I think they're both quality options for one reason or another. Like the offensive explosivity in Miami versus for Smith, but just the opportunity for Parkinson without Higbee being there for an extended period of the season. I think they both have their merit. Yeah, someone in the chat said it's an overpay for Parkinson. I agree. But I mean, that is what they paid him. And I have a hard time believing they're not going to put him to use at all after paying him $24 million.
Yeah, I hear you. No, I mean, that is a lot of money for the tight end. So as we kind of settle in here, what do you think is the biggest single? And then we'll move on to our draft here, but the single biggest signing of the day. In your opinion, what would that be? We'll wrap up our free agency conversation. We'll both kind of go through what we think is the biggest single signing of the day, the one that's going to move the needle the most, and then we'll fire up this draft. But what do you consider the biggest move of the day?
It's 100% Kirk Cousins for me. No matter like how you look at it, like this is a massive change to the landscape of the NFL. First, just the Falcons as a team, massive step up. Competition within the NFC and the division, massive step up. But then from a fantasy perspective, this is going to change the prices dramatically for all of the skill positions all the skill players in Atlanta. You've got all three of those big names are going to shoot up the draft board. So I think just in terms of how it affects both the actual NFL and how we're going to be drafting in fantasy football, because I think now that Falcon stack is going to be one of the more coveted stacks in best ball. So just in terms of how it's changing the landscape, I think Cousins has to be the answer there.
Yeah, honestly, I wanted to go something different. I wanted to differ from you. I do think because of how widespread that impact will be, it is by far the biggest move because Drake London, Kyle Pitts, Bijan all see a big stock up there. I do think Josh Jacobs has legitimately, we saw it just 2 seasons ago, top 5 upside at running back. And now that he's going to be that lead guy here for an offense that's surging, as you mentioned, Aaron Jones topping 100 yards over his last 5 weeks straight. I think that's going to be a really, really fertile environment for him. I think there's going to be a ton of touchdown upside for a guy that is really, really good at scoring at the stripe there. So yeah, I am a big option there or a big fan rather of him landing there. So yeah, I'm excited for that as well. I think he's going to be the big move for the running back position. But yeah, those are the biggest moves we have there. And we obviously, again, have so much more to cover. We'll do a more in-depth show. This is more just the knee-jerk reactions, what we're thinking, how we're feeling. I'm a huge fan for sure of all of this. Alrighty. So we are going to now log into Underdog. But thanks again for those of you that were here for that rapid reaction. If on your way out, you want to watch the stream, we'd love to have you continue to be here with us for that Underdog draft. But if not, that thumbs up button would mean the world as we continue to try to grow the channel. Like, shares, retweets, all that good stuff here for your guy. You can find me at RotoStreetWolf on Twitter, and RotoStreetJournal.com is all our content where you can find my best ball rankings, my redraft rankings. All of those things will be updated tonight after we go live here. But just want to, again, give the knee-jerk winners, losers, all that good stuff. I am now opening, though, the draft. I'm making sure.
We do have potentially one quarterback hole filled with Gardner Minshew signing a 2-year deal with the Raiders. We'll see what else they do. That could be who they just decide to roll into the season with. But, I mean, he was serviceable with the Colts last year. We'll see. But I wouldn't be shocked if they draft someone as well. But that's just
Gardner Minshew ended up where? Sorry?
Vegas with the Raiders.
Oh, interesting.
So,
and I mean, we saw what he did for Michael Pittman. I mean, he top 12 receiver numbers all throughout last year, absolute target hog. That could be great news for Devontae Adams, who still was a top 7 fantasy receiver, even with subpar quarterback play. Yeah, I think.
And he's not being drafted quite as highly as I think Devontae Adams. That is, he's not being drafted quite highly as I think he should be. He's going towards the back of the second round. I think once people start pulling the stats on how heavily Minshew fed Pittman last year, I think he starts to come up a little bit. But for now, I think picking him at pick 2021 is a great spot.
Absolutely. No, I think that's really intriguing at minimum. And it definitely will be interesting to see what the Colts do because as much as you hope Anthony Richardson, nothing happens to him, we only have 1 season of sample size. His style of play, maybe it does lend itself to injury. What are they going to do behind him? That was really important to buoying that offense and keeping them afloat, was having Gardner Minshew. So we shall see. But we are live with our draft with the 11th overall pick here. So it'll be intriguing to see who falls to us, how these free agency moves are impacting the drafts. I've, like I said, done 40 of these things already. So I have a fair understanding of the market. So if we see Josh Jacobs go pick 20, I'll know that's like plus 30 of what we already have. So we can definitely be talking about some of those impacts, but the drafts are starting as they often normally do with CMC, Tyreek, and CD, usually the top 3 guys, no doubt about it. I'm very excited to see what happens in this draft, though, now with all these free agency signings. If you do want to come and join us, please do comment on in what you see, what you like, any questions you have. That's what we kind of do during this draft, is love to use the time to answer your questions. So, yeah, and as Toon's saying, the Falcons have an early pick, too, which is definitely scary, whether they add more talent, whether they beef up that offensive line. I imagine they'll probably look at defense given how loaded the offense already is and how much they've been investing there. But, yeah, it's in a wide open division. If Cousins is healthy, they're gonna feast. And we're already seeing Jefferson now fall to 5.
I was just going to ask,
how worried are you about Justin Jefferson? We didn't really talk about that.
I was just going to ask you the same thing. How far do you think he slips? I think he slips down to maybe like 6, 7. It'll depend on what the answer is for quarterback in Minnesota. A lot of people saying JJ McCarthy, perhaps. So we'll see. But I don't think he'll slip much past pick 6 or 7. I think he's just too good of a receiver. But for dynasty leagues, I'm not a huge dynasty guy, but this puts his extension into huge question, in my opinion. I know they were pretty confident about keeping that pair together, and that kind of all went off the rails when Kirk went down with injury last year. But this is a major shakeup for not only the Falcons but the Vikings too. So this will be interesting to see how it plays out.
No doubt about it. Yeah, definitely a big shakeup for him. He fell to 5 in this one. Nick Mullins was even making him a top 2 receiver. We do have our pick here. I personally love Gibbs, Kyren. I'm not a huge Garrett Wilson guy right now. We could go him. I like Nico. What do you think?
I'm taking a receiver here most of the time, but I'm cool with going Gibbs as well.
All righty. Yeah, I'll go Gibbs here. We just toss that one in there. I do normally start these drafts, and we've talked about them many times. I almost always go receiver, oftentimes 4 receivers to kick it off, given the running back depth that's there. But Gibbs, as explosive as can be, they talked about how in the press conferences at the Combine, a little bit of meat left on the bone and how they want to use him even more so. Does it have to be Nico Collins at this point, or could you try a running back start and see what we end up with?
In my world, it has to be Nico Collins at this point.
Yeah, I'm with you too. It'd be too much opportunity cost. Our receivers might be absolutely abysmal there. I hate passing on Kyren. He was my boy last year. I don't see much of a reason. Everybody calls for regression and how horrible, he has to be due for a step back. But we've seen it with McVay. When he finds his guy, he will ride him to high heavens. And it is a gold mine team when they do have that number 1 bang play. I don't see a huge reason for Kyren Williams to take a huge step back. I have a bunch of starts like this guy, Reed Holtz-Sizer has with Puka and Kyren. I've started quite a few drafts that way as well. I don't see him taking a huge step back, honestly. I think he's still going to be a top 5. It's like Todd Gurley, 80% Todd Gurley, and that's going to be a running back 1 in my opinion. So Kyren's going to be a hotly debated guy this entire offseason. But yeah, it would have been, if we did running back, our receivers would have been absolutely abysmal.
I think running back at this point is outlawed in best ball. If you start running back, you might as well scrap that team. But
hey, we'll see what happens with Uncle Mayweather. She's going to be putting it to the test here with Breece Hall and Devon Achane.
We'll have to come back and look at this. But I like the pick of Nico Collins there. I think, in my opinion, Tank Dell is getting a little bit too much love. It could be my bias towards the big body receivers, or my bias against the small body receivers in Tank Dell, but I'm a huge fan of Nico Collins in the early second rounds.
Yeah, he's been my most drafted round 2 receiver. I have a ton of him. Or in the early best ball drafts, he was falling all the way back to the end of round 2, and I couldn't stop hammering him. But even up here, I have no issue with it. You can already see the impact of free agency. Saquon Barkley going 13th overall, and it's justifiable with the Eagles and the potential space he's going to see now behind that offensive line. I think it's a little rich. He was going, late second just a draft ago, and I still think the touchdown equity is pretty much capped when you have Jalen Hurts, the tush push, all that good stuff. But if they just scrap the tush push and decide to give Barkley a ton of goal line burn, there is a ceiling there. I don't know. That seems a little aggressive to me for a player who I do really like. Great 3-down skill set, but he doesn't look quite like the explosive Barkley that we, as a rookie, had that 1,000 season. I think those days are beyond him, so we shall see. But definitely seeing the impact of free agency with him going ahead of Kyron, Taylor, Devon. Yeah.
His ADP was 23.5 this morning. And like you said, I mean, this is like completely going out on a limb and is completely baseless. But without Jason Kelce, like, who knows? Maybe they scrap the tush push and they start handing it off in the red zone. You never really know how things will go with this. But I agree, the touchdown equity won't really be there. But I think the beginning of the second is a little too early for me. But I think he's worth it to go in the second round.
Yeah, I think late second, sure. Yeah, we shall see. I mean, if Tank falls to us, it's tough to. We already have Nico, but building up the double stack again. Drake London, we're seeing that impact of free agency. He had been going, early fourth, mid fourth at times, and now he's going 29th, and I think it's justifiable, honestly. He's had some huge games. He's had over 180 yards before with Desmond Ridder tossing him ducks. I mean, it's early, but I can definitely see why that case can be made for Drake London. But the free agency impact is very, very real in these early rounds, as you probably expect it to be. That's the knee-jerk reaction. Everybody wants the hot new toy at this point, and I can't blame him. I'm getting kind of hyped up for it all too.
No Tank Dell double stack for us. So where are we left here?
We could go with. I'm down to go Neighbors.
I am too. That's what I was about to say.
Yeah, I like it, and I think we have a good shot at maybe getting Devonta Smith, Keenan, or Cooper on the way back. I don't like going Laporta this early. I mean, I wouldn't necessarily despise it since we do have Gibbs and we could get Goff late as a backup quarterback or maybe even our QB1. There goes Devonta. What would be your preference with these next couple picks?
I'm going Keenan here.
You still believe in Keenan, huh?
I believe in the fact that Mike Williams is out of the picture and that the connection between Keenan and Justin Herbert, I mean, didn't seem to slow down at all as long as he was on the field. So I don't see why. I mean, obviously, like the age, it will happen at some point. But in this spot, I'm going Keenan here most of the time.
Yeah, but then that hideous Greg Roman, they don't like to throw the rock. This is where I've been going Drake London a ton, and he's no longer there.
I was going to say,
you can't go Rome.
I'm not going Rome here. I don't mind Keenan, Kupp. I would even do Jackson or I think those are my top.
All right, I'm gonna go. I like Kupp to bounce back more than I think we probably got auto drafted Keenan, and it's fine. I loved what he did last year, but I don't know. I wouldn't even be shocked if he's the guy and not Mike Williams to get cut and traded. And even if not, it's the Greg Roman offense has never been friendly to just those quick hits, quick strike guys. It's more so the vertical offense to set up the seam for the tight end, the running game. So I don't love it, but man, he was an absolute monster when he was healthy last year. So I guess we'll see. I've loved Keenan his whole career. So you know what? I can get over it. But I do think like once Devonta, Tank, Pittman are gone, we'll see where Neighbors ends up. But I do think there's a little bit of a drop off here. I mean, what about T and getting traded? Like, could that have been? I don't love T Higgins though either. That group of receivers kind of drops off hard, in my opinion.
Yeah, I don't. It's hard to get a gauge on the T Higgins situation right now. But I think he'll come up. He'll definitely come up if he stays with the Bengals. But that's one of the ones I'm just kind of a wait and see on until we get a more clear picture of how that's going to end up.
For sure. All righty. So yeah, in terms of any other monster risers or followers, the two big ones have been Drake London and Saquon Barkley so far. We will see the impact it also has on, I'm surprised Josh Jacobs honestly hasn't gone yet. And if he kind of makes his way to us in this next round,
we're going to have to think about it.
I would be all over him in this offense. I honestly wish I had more of him. I'm going to bump him to the top, maybe below these elite tight ends. But I couldn't be more excited, honestly, about him in the Green Bay offense.
To see where Pitts goes.
Yeah, I know.
ADP around 85 before all of this morning.
Yeah. And I mean, the fantasy community has always wanted to love Kyle Pitts. So
yeah.
I can see his value going up big for sure. So that'll be an interesting one to see it play out. I'll leave the draft board up, though, so you guys can see it. If you're new to best ball, as you can see, receivers fly off these Underdog draft boards here. And I actually do think we were going to originally, our topic was going to be values. But obviously with the free agency stuff, it made much more sense to go live and chat through that. But I do think as fast as receivers do fly off here, we already hinted at the idea of those rookie receivers that go from pick, 80 to 120. If you get the one that lands with the Bills or the Chiefs, there's so much depth in here that it's not a given beyond, of course, the big three of Marvin Harrison, Rome, and Neighbors. Like, it's not a guarantee at all that any of the – I do love Brian Thomas, too. I mean, I think he's an absolute animal. But still, like, maybe it's A.D. Mitchell. Maybe it's, McConkey. There's going to be some absolute stud rookies. So I love taking stabs there. Unfortunately, it does look like Jacobs went where did he go? He went pick 50.
Early fourth.
Which I think is a great value for him still. I wouldn't be shocked if he's going ahead of, honestly, Travis Etienne. I'd rather have Jacobs. I don't like Etienne. They're already talking about reducing his role. I don't love Rachaad White. I would take Jacobs over White, Cook, Pacheco, Etienne. I'd rather have him maybe after. Certainly, I'd say these round 2 running backs, no. But I think Jacobs, anywhere after them, I would probably maybe I'm overreacting, but I love him in this system over there for Green Bay. But we do have a pick to make. I've settled on Ken Walker a lot, and I also do love Brian Thomas here. What do you think? We do already have a running back in Gibbs. Do we just go with Thomas?
Yeah, that's what I was about to say.
All righty.
I've been liking a lot of DeAndre Hopkins too. I mean, I was leaving out. I was waiting to see on Treylon Burks last year, and he just didn't really show anything. And the target competition in Tennessee just seems so soft that, I mean, he's under contract, and the expectation he's going to be playing with Levis. They showed some flashes last year. I've just been talking myself into a lot of DeAndre Hopkins.
I love Hopkins too. Now they've already talked about how they're definitely going to take some receivers this draft class, but yeah, I mean, so before we get too deep into him, I do think we should either prioritize Walker or stacking up Stroud with.
I think we have to stack Stroud.
All right, let's do it. I like it too because they're still potentially adding more rookie receiver talent. Like they haven't ruled out the fact that they could be dipping into this insane talent pool at receiver as well. So I think Stroud is only beginning. I think that's a great value on Ken Walker. I really like that there.
Kind of shifting topics, but how far are you discounting Ramondre Stevenson after Antonio Gibson signed with the Patriots? I mean, I've kind of thought of this entire offseason, I've been thinking of the Patriots offense as a wasteland, but it's getting to the point that at least with his current price, I know it hasn't adjusted yet, but I'm just thinking about taking a Sharpie and crossing off his name and just not even picking up any Ramondre Stevenson.
We'll see. I get it, but I don't know that Gibson's anything that good. He certainly didn't look it last year, and I have been a Gibson guy in the past. Loved him. Yeah, I used to be taking him round 2, and he was honestly paying it off many of the years. To me, I actually am, and I'm a New England guy, and a lot of people were disappointed in Alex Van Pelt and shitting on the offensive coordinator signing. I actually really like it. I think he brings good experience. I saw what he did with Cleveland, 4 different quarterbacks, and that offense still was churning out 25, 30 points a week, 11-5 record. I think he was a huge part of that. I like Stefanski. I'm a big fan of him too. But he said, losing Van Pelt was one of the biggest losses. We're going to feel it this year. And I think it was a great hire. And in particular, he's been great for running games as well. And I know you have Nick Chubb. Of course, you're going to have a good running game no matter who's calling the plays. But they just routinely were churning out yards and yards. And Ramondre talked a lot about how in his conversations with Van Pelt, how he's emphasized that, I like getting guys volume and getting them in a groove and not really, splitting the workload and letting him get out of there. And Ramondre talked about how that's what he wants. He wants to be fed 20 times a game and hit his kind of momentum there. And so, yeah, sure, Gibson is a receiving back, but Ramondre is too. And you could see a world where Gibson is less of a running back and more of that move around slot receiver, the role that he probably should have been from day one. I wouldn't be shocked at all if he ends up being more of that and less of a threat to Ramondre. It didn't end up even impacting Ramondre, who went right around where he goes now. But I'm not in the cross him off, not ever considering Ramondre anymore. Is it a little bit of a hit to him? Sure. Like in a Montgomery versus Ramondre, which was kind of a coin flip for me. Yeah, I'm going to go Montgomery, but I'm not totally against Ramondre right now. And this offense in general.
It's understandable. I don't particularly want to sit here and nitpick the New England offense at 5 p.m. on a Monday in March. We can save that for a couple months down the road. But yeah, I think he eats into the receiving work. And yeah, I like we saw the Browns able to run the ball with really anyone, with Van Pelt as their OC. But out of just how many games they're going to be in a game script where they can run the ball 20 times a game, I don't really know. But we'll see. But like I said, no need to be getting this down the rabbit hole with the Patriots offense right now.
The other takeaway, though, with Gibson leaving is where does that leave Brian Robinson, who Matthew Berry wrote about when he talked to Dan Quinn? The first guy he brought up was Brian Robinson, how he loved his physical presence, how you look at Kingsbury and how many touchdowns, whether it was Kenyon Drake, whether it was James Conner, his backs routinely ranked in the top 5 in total touchdowns scored. I think Brian Robinson, especially now with Gibson gone and not re-signed there, sure, they're going to make some more backfield moves, but I think he's somebody that could be rising up boards. I'm shocked to see Aaron Jones going this late. I was hoping he might make his way to us, just given this Texans rumor. If he ends up being the Texans guy, if he goes to the Cowboys, it's still Aaron Jones. And I know he's 27, 28, maybe even 29 coming in this year, but I would not be just tossing him to the wayside here. But I don't like Tajay, especially with this Pollard news. Any of these running backs intriguing you?
It pains me to say this, but I like Connor and Najee here out of the two.
They're so unsexy, and yet they always kind of end up. There's Mixon still here. He hasn't been cut yet.
No, just he'll come up when that news gets announced either way.
Yeah, I think I prefer Connor, but I'd be open to Najee.
My pick is Connor or Mixon, but we could. Yeah,
we might get one of the. We might get the other one on the way back. So,
I'm fine with Connor here.
Yeah, I'll go Connor, and then I don't mind taking the stab at Mixon. Running back 6 last year, over 1,000 yards. Maybe takes the pay cap.
Mixon.
I think Mixon's going to be back, and it's going to be one of those situations where, just like last year, he was going 80 to 100, and then once he was back, he was going round 3-4. I could definitely see that. Najee, to me, it's like you're in the Arthur Smith committee hellhole. Maybe Russell makes this offense a little better, and he's gone anyway, so we don't have to worry about it. But
yeah,
I like going Mixon here. Is there any disagreement there?
My choice would be either Mixon or Dobbs. Yeah, so Mixon's fine with me.
Yeah, I like Dobbs, but I'm not convinced he's gonna outproduce Wicks, who goes 2-3 rounds later by such a significant margin that we can't just wait there. And we already do have 4 quality receivers at this point, whereas running backs, we started with Gibbs. I mean, I kind of like this roster. I'm a big fan of it. I still am Gibbs over Kyron. I know Gibbs is sexy and young and all that, but I don't know. Maybe it's just because I had Kyron on every team last year. I don't want to keep steering our conversation back to him, but he was just such a reliable stud each and
Oh, he
every
was
week.
great. It was 20 to 25 touches every single week he was out there. I mean, that's kind of what your hopes and prayers are for any running back that you roll out there in fantasy. And yeah, I don't know. It's just, for me, it's the allure of Gibbs and what the explosiveness and what he can do, and hoping that role is increased next season.
Yeah. So in terms of neighbors who we took here, the one thing I don't love about like him and Marvin Harrison is they're likely going to go top 7 overall for both of them. And so when you're going to a top 7 team, it's usually not the ideal of offenses. But when you look at the NFL draft, like what do you kind of consider our best case here? NFL draft order. So I'll pull that up. You might have it memorized at this point. But yeah, like where do you want to see him go? For like realistic, it's going to go Chicago, Washington, New England, Arizona. The Chargers are 5. Okay, that could be interesting for sure. Then the Giants, Tennessee, Atlanta, Chicago again, and then the Jets. I'm not in love with most of those. The Chargers were the easy one that I perked up a little bit. Did you hear any other teams that you were like, okay, yeah, I wouldn't hate that spot?
So I've been seeing neighbors slipping down a little bit, like into the double digits here and there. I don't think, like, just in some mock drafts, but I really don't think that what I don't think that's what ends up happening. I was kind of in my head wish casting at him to either Minnesota or Los Angeles, but the Minnesota one is looking much less appealing now. And I mean, just considering that Kirk is gone. But I agree, there's not like too many ideal landing spots in the top 12. I don't think the Broncos or the Titans are terrible. We'll see who the Broncos roll out there at quarterback. I mean, this is kind of what you're going to get when you're drafting when you're drafting in fantasy, a guy who's going to go really high up in the actual NFL draft. There's not many landing spots that I'm going to like, but I'm just, once again, just kind of betting on the talent here. And if he goes to one of these lesser teams in the top, I mean, just looking at some of the names, the Patriots, the Bears, the Cardinals, a lot of these places, he's going to be the top guy. But yeah, like you said, it kind of just really depends on where he ends up, and a lot of them aren't ideal.
I wouldn't even hate out of those like top 10 spots. The one that jumped out to me beyond, of course, the Chargers would be the Titans. I like Levis. I think he's got that live cannon arm. I like Brian Callahan, a pass happy guy that's made 2 explosive receivers work before based on his Cincinnati days. That one kind of intrigues me, at least a little bit. I don't hate, taking the discount here on Justin Herbert. He goes, I was going to say because we have Keenan Allen and maybe the shot that Neighbors ends up there. But he goes, I love the Sutton, as we talked about early, with Judy gone. I think that could be a great pick. We don't have a tight end yet. I mean, we could continue to pile on like the rookie receivers, as we talked about, trying to hit that Bills guy, or maybe Marquise Brown. Some of these guys go. I think Sutton's the play for now, though, right?
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. I'm having such a hard time with Worthy. I mean, there's a reason no one who's looked like that and had that athletic profile has succeeded in the NFL, but it's just so exciting, too. I don't really know what to make of it. I mean, 5'11", but also only weighs like 160. What did he come in at? 165?
Yeah.
It's scary.
I know when you look at his like RAS score, which factors in size and all the other drills too, despite breaking the record at the combine for speed, he still was like only the wide receiver 11 in total RAS because of the size. So it is sketchy, but I mean, man, like he ends up with Kansas City and there's all the next Tyreek Hill type of talk. I like going with either Worthy. You're not a Williams guy, right?
I'm out on Mike Williams. Let's go Worthy.
Let's go Worthy. Let's see where the speed demon ends up. And these are, I know we took Neighbors, but like these are the rookies that are going to fall to like the 20s and 30s that could end up with the Texans, could end up with the Bills, could end up with the Chiefs. These are the ones I really like to laser in on. I just hadn't taken any neighbors yet, so I kind of wanted to get a little bit of exposure to him before. Once rookies get drafted, they almost always like bump up around for whatever reason too. So, and I've had plenty of DK and Devonta in my early drafts as well. So that was more so a ownership pick because I don't have a lot of him in my portfolio. But this is the range where I do love starting to target these receivers. I was hoping A.D. Mitchell might fall to us. I think he's going to be an absolute monster. Speaking of RAS scores, 9.98, like one of the best of all time. Him and Brian Thomas. So we've got a intriguing team of rookies here between Neighbors, Thomas, and Worthy. Now we're really banking on this fact that this could be a historic rookie class. If we did this 4 years ago in that Jefferson class, we'd be looking pretty good. All those rookies ended up hitting, other than like N'Keal Harry, whoever was. There's maybe like one or two busts in there, but was that same class with like AJ Brown and Debo, and the Pats missed like the only receiver that like sucked that entire class?
I'm gonna look it up right now. I can't remember exactly.
I don't think he was in the Jefferson class, but that was a crazy class. That was like an AJ Brown second round, Debo Samuel. The Jefferson class, I think, was CeeDee Lamb might have been in that one. Judy, who obviously has been meh. But like there was a few studs in that one too. Ayuk might have been in that one. So we'll see. I mean, everyone's talking about this rookie class being that. So maybe. I love this. I can't believe Sutton's price hasn't gone up at all since Judy. In fact, this is the cheapest I've seen him go. I think that's a phenomenal pick for him. I'd love to get Marvin Mims. He's going around 160. Like I'd love to snag him in this 155, 158 range in a few rounds, even without knowing who that quarterback's going to be there in Denver, banking on Sean Payton, banking on two players that I think are pretty solid talents. I think that's a good move. I think Tyler Lockett going 120. I know you texted me for some values yesterday, like these kind of unsexy Suttons and Locketts and, later Brandon Cooks, the guys that have these 18 to 20 point days 4 to 5 times a year with some decent days mixed in there that you don't really want because it's like, they're never going to be that player that pushes you over the edge, the Puka Nacua that just takes over the league in the late rounds. But that has a very valuable spot in best ball where your wide receiver 3 spot is just kind of rotating these gross, ugly veterans that ultimately are putting up big scores. That I like doing that because then you can balance it out with these rookie dart throws and hoping you get the right one that lands with Mahomes, lands with the Bills. You need some solid baked in like security there. So I love these Lockett Suttons. Like they're gross, and yet I think they're really, really good, solid best ball picks.
I mean, no one really wants to talk about it, but you need like some floor guys on your best ball team. Like you need guys who are going to be there. Like this is why I love David Montgomery. Like, you know what you're going to get. You're not going to get a ton of explosive games, but you're going to get consistent production whenever they're on the field. And like you said, if we're taking stabs at these kind of, I don't want to say lottery pick, but taking chances on these rookie receivers, we need to fill in guys on the rest of the roster that we know are going to consistently produce, or else you're just kind of setting yourself up for a ticking time bomb of a roster. Like you either miss on all of them or a bunch of them hit. So I think mixing in they might be unsexy, but mixing in those floor guys is huge.
Yeah, absolutely. Speaking of floor guys, I do think Dalton Schultz makes sense here at tight end. The guy behind us already has Laporta, so we might be safe to pass up. But I don't know if there's anybody that I really care anyways, like if he didn't fall back to us. I like Jaden Daniels here. I think, fantasy goodness for sure, potentially there with him. I like Shaheed and Wicks as well. What do you think? Do we have to lock up Schultz, or because this guy has Laporta, we let someone fall?
I think we can go Schultz here, and then just I would like to see Shaheed on the way back, but I think we gotta lock up Schultz.
Yeah, that'd be. I know the guy has Laporta, but it's such a big drop off here, like to Musgrave. And it's our guy to stack with Stroud.
I've learned my lesson on on getting people to do what I expect them to do. Like
Yeah.
even with Laporta there, you never really know. So you got to get your guys when he's there, and
Yeah.
shit goes. So
I like either Daniels, Wicks, or Blake Corum here to take like a stab at a rookie landing with the Chargers. Or I really do like Daniels and then
let's
backs
go
up Stroud. What'd you say?
Let's go Daniels.
Yeah, sweet. That's who I was hoping you'd want to go.
Yeah.
Because he's the perfect guy. Like Stroud's going to be a nice 18 to 20 with some big ceiling blow up games too. No doubt. You don't take him in the 6th round thinking he doesn't have a ceiling. But like we're not going to need Daniels to be in our lineup except for the games where he runs for 100 and a touchdown and throws for 2. You know, I think that's a nice, like when you take an early quarterback, Daniels is the perfect type of guy to then like he'll be in your lineup for smash weeks, and that's what you want. So yeah, I think Daniels, 10 picks below his ADP. Big fan of it. I think that's an awesome spot for him to go. So
just
in terms of
your
free agent,
fingers
yeah. What were you gonna say?
Just crossing your fingers there and hoping it's not New England for Daniels, though.
Which it very well could be.
Yeah,
very
sorry,
well
but
could
it's just
be.
a wasteland.
It is, but I'm telling you, like that's the thing with like a Daniels, a mobile quarterback. They're gonna run him. He's gonna get his leg points no matter what.
And we talked about it last year. I mean, if you have the rushing floor, you're basically guaranteed to be relevant in fantasy.
Yeah.
I mean, he's not going to be a 0 as long as he's running. So even if it is New England, like he could succeed just based on rushing alone. Who did we talk about this last year? Oh, it was Richardson. He doesn't like. We can go back and pull the numbers later when we get deeper into this, but yeah, if he runs, it might not even matter with New England, but it's still just a scary thought.
Yeah, I remember you had a great stat, like when the quarterback averages 7 or more attempts a game. Like
I think it was 700 rushing
below
yards.
A top 10 quarterback or something like that. It's great.
I think every quarterback who's been a 700-yard rusher has been at least like the QB 13. We'll talk about it later, but yeah, the rushing. So I saw something on Twitter in the last couple of weeks. Some guy was advocating for it being called the rushing floor instead of the rushing upside because rushing quarterbacks basically dominate now. I mean, we saw with the drop off of Mahomes, and obviously that can only be a 1-year thing, and you can't really say any sure things about Mahomes just because of how good he is. But I mean, you kind of need to have some sort of rushing aspect to your game to challenge for the QB1 anymore.
Yeah, 110%. I agree. I was pissed. I highlighted Marvin Mims, who I was hoping for this 155. There he goes. Unfortunately,
he's going to get so much steam, but he's a type of receiver I don't want to be too bullish on until they get the quarterback, just because of his production mostly coming from explosive plays. If the quarterback plays a nightmare, it's likely going to be a nightmare with Mims, but he's definitely like one of those guys you need to have on. You need to have some exposure to on your best ball rosters, just because 1, now the opportunity, and 2, just the talent and skill set. You've got to have them, but I think the quarterback play could really, really kill him.
Yeah, it's absolutely. If it's who's it's Stidham. If it's him, that's no bueno for sure. But I think they've got to make some sort of move there. We will see. In terms of who's left here for us, I'm not a Kendre guy. I don't like Khalil. Certainly not with Swift now landing there. I don't hate taking the stab at Braylon Allen because he'll probably be like a touchdown style machine. I mean, Adam Thielen's so gross, but like guaranteed production in an offense that could ascend. So I don't hate him. I like taking the stab on Lloyd, one of my favorite guys at the running back position in an ugly class. Bucky Irving's a guy I had been landing a lot, and sadly, don't want much more of him. We talked about Baker earlier, him landing up. I don't know if we need even 3 quarterbacks with Stroud and Daniels already, but
no.
I'm just trying to star some guys. Anybody kind of speaking out to you?
Baker's talking to me, but I just don't like him we don't need him for this build, but just like he's one of those floor guys. Like you're going to get consistent production out of him. He's going to have some bad weeks and he's going to have some spike weeks, but I think he's one of those guys that you can be targeting in the back of your drafts to contribute throughout the season to your team.
If we hadn't taken Daniels, I'd say maybe we fire it up.
Yeah.
I just don't know if we need him right now.
No.
Yeah, it starts to thin out. I do like we talked about Gus Edwards landing with LA, 2-year deal with the Chargers. It's too early for him now, but that's definitely somebody I want to be watching, some touchdown upside there. I kind of like going Braylon Allen as
I
a
was
big
about to say
body
the same
rookie.
thing.
Yeah, sweet. And then I think this is either maybe we're going for the Patriots stack with Demario Douglas now, because we have Daniels. But I like Ricky Percival a lot. He tested really, really well at the combine as well. He's one of those guys that could end up with the Bills. Maybe we go for one of these rookies, or what are you thinking here?
How do you pronounce Pearsall? How's it pronounced?
Percival?
Percival, I've never gotten
probably.
it consistently. But one of my favorite draft guys, Dane Brugler, he's huge. He's really high on Pearsall, however you want to pronounce it. But so he's someone that I've just been trying to grab because some of these lower down rookies, I'm not taking deep dives into them. So at least not yet. Like I will obviously when they end up on teams. But he's a guy I like. But
he goes here, so maybe we go Polk.
Sure.
Just take a stab. Again, this is like that range of rookies we kind of talked about, 100 to 160, where you just hope that they land in the right spots. Because all the veterans here, it's like even in their best case, like I'm all for. We talked about the sexy veterans in terms of the unsexy upside of like a Brandon Cooks, a Lockett, those type of guys. I just don't see that to a Demario Douglas and like maybe Palmer if they get rid of one of the Chargers, but I don't know. Like if they get rid of someone, they probably drafting a rookie as well. I would say Treylon Burks a little bit intriguing. I really do like trying to get Gus Edwards our next way back. I could see him having some good touchdown upside there. Like that's one of the type of unsexy veterans I am into. Derek Carr, no. But yeah, like anybody speaking to you?
I was just gonna say the only thing I've been thinking about for the last couple seconds is that I'm out on Audric Estime. Post combine, I was reading an article just about he ran above a 4.7 and
4.71. Yeah.
Yeah. Very few running backs have found success after running higher than 4.7. And he's one of those kind of ground and pound running backs. And there's just after the combine, there's just not much about his profile that and I think it tanks his draft capital. And there's just with the falling draft capital and just the athletic profile is just someone that I'm not particularly interested in anymore. Jatavion Sanders, though, at tight end, though, I do like him as well.
Yeah, I like him, and I think this is definitely should be a 3 tight end build. So like he's the type of guy I like, and then maybe Jonnu a little bit later. I like Conklin as well with Rodgers likely coming back. I like Jonnu here. Oh yeah, Davis Allen no longer. I am a Tucker Kraft fan. I think he's a big body that could be their number 1 guy over Musgrave, who goes 3 rounds earlier than him. But Tucker Kraft by the end of the year was their guy, playing more snaps even when Musgrave came back. So there's still some tight ends I like out here for sure.
I don't know. I don't think I'll be drafting much of Kraft or Musgrave. I haven't looked at the splits because I know both of them, they were on and off the field, but I haven't looked at the splits just yet. But I have a feeling that that's going to be one of those really messy tight end, like New England last year, like between Gesicki and Hunter Henry, like a couple times, like one of them grabbed a touchdown or 2, and then they were solid for the week. But other than that, it was just a complete nightmare. So I think that's kind of the path we're heading down in Green Bay, at least in terms of the tight end room.
They at least have a quarterback there. Not Mac Jones
goes right there.
Gus Edwards just went. Yeah.
I think what you said about him is great. I mean, yeah, he's like unsexy, but if he falls in for 7 to 10 touchdowns, like we don't know who else is going to be in that running back room. It's obviously going to be someone else, but if it's someone that it's obvious that he's going to take on that short yardage role and goal line role, I think he could end up being great just if he falls in a couple of times.
I'm with you. I think he went about 20 picks higher than his ADP typically is, and I think that's still. I think he'll be. Well, it depends again who else lands there, but I don't see a way where he's not at least somewhat involved at the stripe, even if he's probably not going to be the lead guy. But I think he will. He has that 8 to 10 touchdown upside that in our running back room probably could have been pretty useful as a guy that just kind of plunges in as our running back too every now and again. But not this one. Maybe we could try Ray Davis, another big body guy. There is still these valuable backfields that are open that it just takes one rookie to land in the right spot.
It's just it always puts you in a blender trying to think about what's available because you just don't know where everyone's going yet. So it's just always hard trying to the guessing game.
I know we don't need a quarterback because we have Stroud, we have Daniels. This value on Mayfield, 25 picks after when we know he's going back to where he was a top 15 quarterback, he's going to have a couple 25 to 30-point days. We've already seen it. I don't know. I might just put him in here because I don't love really anything else, and it's
I mean, I don't mind taking the insurance policy on Jaden Daniels either. How about you? Hold on. I'm having a hard time hearing you right now. I think that Wolf just got kicked, but we'll see if he comes back in here. But we're going to have a hard time running this draft. We're going to have a hard time running this draft without me being able to see the screen. So we'll see. Oh, there he is.
All righty. Sorry about that.
I was just saying I was going to have a hard time doing the draft without being able to see the screen.
Sorry about that. The mic got tapped and unplugged. Here we are.
No worries.
All righty. So we took Baker after that mic got unplugged.
That's fine with me.
Sweet.
I think you got to kind of take him there, falling almost 30 spots.
Yeah, I agree. I don't like more. Are you a Burks guy or no?
I'm not. I mean,
no.
Just because of the fact that if they don't add anyone, he'll be okay, but I'm not sold on the talent.
Yeah, Sanders went, unfortunately, right before us. I don't hate going a tight end or Trey Palmer here to stack with. Here, oh, crap, it's going to be Burks.
Let's go Palmer. Yeah, let's go Palmer.
I know, I wanted to, and then it auto-picked us with Burks.
Oh, wow.
Chaos.
I think tight end-wise, I think we can hold off until – I don't mind the Jonnu Smith pick. What's his ADP right
now? For Palmer?
No, Jonnu Smith. For tight end, I was just saying I think we can hold off and grab Jonnu Smith. I don't mind that at all.
Oh, I definitely want Jonnu. I kind of want 3 tight ends, though.
Oh, I didn't realize we hadn't drafted a second yet. Yeah, we're definitely going to need 3.
Yeah. When we only have Schultz as our first one. So, Chig, Conklin, Jonnu goes 206. So, we can probably hold off. Yeah, next round we might go tight end at this point.
Yeah, that's what it's looking like.
I really don't hate Treylon Burks. He had some huge games as a rookie. If Callahan's worth the salt, which I think he is, I think he could end up having a pretty surprising year as like a big yak guy with some big plays. He gets hurt a lot. He shows up out of shape, so it'll depend on what type of shape he shows up in. But he had that tough knee injury, so I'm not overly out on him quite yet.
I was very high. This could just be me being a little biased just because I was very high on him as a rookie and ended up getting burned by him. But yeah, after seeing last season, it's just been harder and harder for me to sell myself on Burks. But if they don't add anyone, I mean, he's the clear number 2. So
they'll definitely add somebody, but I don't know. I'm intrigued if he becomes more of like a package player. He can do some damage after the catch. He has a big body. I don't hate the Burks pick as much as you do.
You're right. He had some performances that were like very, very impactful in fantasy when he was a rookie. So he's capable of it, but it's been a little bit since we've seen it. And it's a tough click for me at this point.
Yeah.
But I mean, Treylon Burks, I don't think is going to be one of those guys that makes or breaks anyone's fantasy season. So it's not the end of the world having differing opinions on Burks there.
Yeah. No, I'm with you there too.
I
would
like
say
that Dowdle pick there. I like that Dowdle pick a lot. I mean, he's still going to be with Dallas next year, and obviously they're going to bring in someone else. But if it's a step down, I mean, that we saw them give him touches in over Tony Pollard last year. So if it's someone who's not like a true established running back in the NFL, I could see Dowdle getting some run in a very quality offense. So he's another late round guy that I'm kind of keeping my eye on, and then also keeping my eye on to see who the Cowboys bring in.
Yeah, I'm with you there too. He might be a free agent, just as a heads up.
He?
I had originally had Dowdle as like one of my must targets because of exactly what you just said. And then I remember reading that he might be a free agent actually this year too. So if he's not in Dallas, if they re-sign him, then yes, I think absolutely. But yeah, he could potentially be gone as well. Looks like Trey Palmer might make his way back to us. I also do like Bateman, who was hyped up at the combine. I know he's done pretty much nothing in his career, but we've seen the glimpses. Was a first-round talent, and Harbaugh said, he earned his way to a full-time role next year. Sometimes you just need a guy to have the field time as this offense, and then he goes right as we're hyping him up. I don't hate stacking up Palmer and Baker here, though.
I like that pick.
But, yeah, and then we do really need to start looking at tight end. I think Jonnu might be even gone at this point.
Is he?
Oh yeah, we're in ugly territory.
Is going. Yeah, Jonnu's gone.
Yeah, we're going to be hurting at tight end. There's no doubt about that.
We'll figure it out.
I mean, yeah, Noah Fant's a free agent. Ertz, maybe Dolchik's rebounds with a new quarterback. Everett's a free agent. I like this Ben. I like this rookie Ben. He was a combine freak show.
Yeah, as was one of those guys at the combine. Yeah.
Theo Johnson had an absolute monstrous combine. So maybe we just wrap our draft up with like the two freak rookies and hope like they're a Laporta type of situation.
Noah Fant is someone that I've been grabbing some of when I punt on tight end, just because he's a free agent and he's like just another one of those guys who had a freak athletic profile coming out of college. I mean, as freaky as it gets for a tight end, but with being a free agent, just the question mark of where he ends up has him discounted some, in my opinion. So I've just been grabbing him, hoping he lands in a good landing spot and with a quality quarterback, because I think he has the athletic profile and talent to produce on a good offense, but he's been kind of stuck as an afterthought to this point in his NFL career. Yeah,
I definitely could see him like he lands with the Chargers or something of that nature, where they need a pass catching complement.
Yep.
And Greg Roman's offense, needs a big athletic tight end. That could be a great spot. We have three more picks? 2 more picks. I definitely think we need at least one more running back. We only have 4.
Yeah, definitely.
And they're questionable for Gibbs, no, but Connor, questionable, no, except for his health. But if he's hurt, then we only have Mixon, who might not be with the Bengals. Yeah, we definitely need a running back. I kind of like Zeke. He's kind of like that, like gross floor, but wherever he lands, he'll probably see some volume and be like a good handcuff. I really like Dylan Lobb as well out of UNH.
That is one of those rookies that I have not personally made.
And yet. Justice Hill was getting a ton of hype from Harbaugh as like the only running back that's still with the Ravens, and they're very excited to still have him back, and thought he was like one of the biggest risers of last year. So those are the 3 running backs I really like. Is there one of those 3 that you'd prefer should they fall to us?
Yeah, I don't want to say that there's one of these guys that I really, really like, but I don't mind Justice Hill. I think we've kind of seen that the Ravens have been able to run the ball and utilize their running backs pretty effectively, no matter who it really is. Obviously, there's going to be someone else there next year, but I can confidently say we're getting down to the rookie running backs that I'm not as familiar with. I know the names and some characteristics characteristics, but that's about it. So I'll defer to you when it comes to the rookies, but between Justice Hill and Zeke, I'm going Justice Hill.
Gotcha. Yeah. Lob is a UNH kid, so University of New Hampshire, small school, but then crushed the Senior Bowl, like was one of the highlight players of it, and then ultimately had a really good combine for his size. I think he ran like a 4.48 or something as a big 220. Catch the ball, can kind of he says he molds his game off of McCaffrey. So of course he's not McCaffrey, but he's that type of like every down guy that in the right spot might come into something. So he intrigues me. And then, I mean, the tight ends is a shit show at this
tight
point.
End, big shit show.
I think taking a stab at like Sinop maybe.
Yeah, let's do that.
Yeah, so I think we'll definitely take a tight end and then maybe either Hill or Lob and hope that, one of them lands in the right spot.
Sounds good to me.
And that'll wrap us up.
The Ravens backfield is particularly interesting to me because on the roster, like the only running backs of note are Hill and what's his name? Keaton Mitchell. And Keaton Mitchell is going to be probably start the season on the PUP. So they'll bring someone in most likely, but for at least 6 weeks, maybe. I haven't really seen an official timeline for Mitchell, but for some period of time, at minimum, Justice Hill is going to be mixing in. So you'll get a handful of weeks of production at minimum. So you would like more, but with how our running back room is looking and what's on the board at running back, I think it's a fine pick.
Yeah. I do like Hill, and he really did get hyped up. He's kind of like, it wouldn't shock me if he ended up like they just don't make any moves at back, or they make moves and they sign Henry and he gets hurt early or something like that. And Hill's just kind of the veteran standover who has a valuable piece of a valuable offense. He had some really big games last year. So yeah, I'd say I'd prioritize Hill and Lob goes anyways.
What do you think about Chris Rodriguez there? Antonio Gibson out of the picture. And when he got run last year, I mean, it wasn't much, but I have not looked at Chris Rodriguez's 2023 numbers yet. I don't think you have either. But from remembering back to the Commanders games that I watched last year, I thought he looked solid when he got run. So as the number 2, at least for now, he's an interesting name. He's not someone I want to say is a great pick right now because I haven't looked into him heavily, but he's an interesting name here at the end of drafts.
He is. Yeah. I totally get what you're saying. I think they're going to probably make a move. He's just got like an overlapping skill set with B-Rob. So he's kind of more of a handcuff, but I don't hate it. I kind of want to go Hill for those reasons you cited. I mean, we could go C-Rod and just have 2 tight ends and hope, Schultz is okay and Fant lands somewhere else. Like, Sinot already went. So I don't mind just taking one more running back unless any of these tight ends. Theo Johnson's like an athletic freak rookie, but very well could be nothing. So I don't mind C-Rod here if you wanted to go that route.
I think we got to get a tight end, unfortunately. That the 2 tight ends with those 2 names makes me a little too nervous.
Yeah. Anyone stand out to you of these 4?
No. I like Everett. I'm out on Ertz. I'm done with Ertz. I've been done with him for a little bit, but between Johnson and Everett, it's up to you.
All right, we'll go with the rookie. Hope his athleticism carries him to like a nice receiving role, and he ends up doing some damage. So it ended up being a 3.693 build.
Yeah.
Or 3.593.
Oh.
Not in love with it, but I thought the Jane Daniels, I wonder like what running backs were available when we took him, because I thought he was a great value, but to get Mayfield as late as we did, 134. So we could have had, Jalen Wright, Blake Corum, maybe we could have gotten a rookie that has a chance to land somewhere. That might have been the one change, but I don't know. What do you think? I kind of like what we did.
I like what we did. Not to change topics, but how bullish are you on Jalen Wright? I know he was one of those combine warriors that everyone kind of fell in love with after he He put up those numbers, and I'm not sure how far he's come up since, but I think he's going to be one of those guys that climbs up draft boards, and if he ends up in the right spot, I think it's going to be one of those rookies that everyone's talking about this offseason.
Oh, it already is. Yeah, he was going. I was taking him like 200 in these early drafts, and then after that combine, he's been shooting up like plus 50. He's one of the biggest risers in recent ADP, for sure, especially going over like Blake Corum and stuff even now. So he's one of the biggest risers. I'm a big Jalen Wright fan, and I really liked him when I was getting him in these rounds. He was going around 19, 20 not too long ago. So people have woken up to him. His combine kind of made everybody realize how great he is. But I have a lot of him from my early drafts. It'll be interesting to see where he lands because he definitely is that type of playmaker with the right collar, could do a lot of damage. So I'm a big fan of his. Yeah, for sure.
Overall,
I think it's a solid team, though.
Yeah,
we definitely need some rookies to land in the right spots, but we got some interesting, like we talked about it on our last draft, where you want to get the guys that could just shoot up in value. And I think we have some of those rookies that if they land in the right spots, will be going 3-4 rounds earlier than we took them. So I think we did well for, covering a ton of news today and then trying to react on the fly with a draft. I'm pleased with our effort for sure.
I think it was pretty solid. This has been my first draft since free agency. I wasn't doing anything this afternoon in terms of drafting. So one thing that I am interested to see is I was listening to Pat Crane's podcast the other day, and he was talking about this in reference to the combine. But players who didn't do well at the combine, he was saying he was observing that some of them weren't falling particularly far. So I'm interested to see if that carries over to free agency. That, like, one of the player that we kind of harped on a lot today was Ramondre Stevenson getting killed by free agency. But those players that kill in free agency or get killed by free agency signings, how far, like, do they fall the proper amount? How far will they fall? So a lot of people keep their eyes on the risers and who's benefiting from free agency, but I'll be interested to see who's falling and if they fall in what I deem to be a proper amount.
Yeah, I think that's a really good point. Absolutely, to track those falls. Pat Crane, obviously, the winner of the tournament. He's a good mind to be listening to and picking for sure. So yeah, I think that's just as important. It's like the unsexy side of things. But I think Aaron Jones is a great example from our draft today. He fell from going in the 60s to going to pick 80 and might land with the Texans, might even end up in a more friendly spot. So there's definitely some volatility up in the streets right now. That's the time where you can make these super teams that are just bananas. Because if Aaron Jones went to the Texans, we'd be talking about him as what, like a fourth rounder, maybe? Like that'd be a beautiful spot. Like,
oh yeah,
fifth round at the latest, and he went in round 7, 8 right now. So yeah, like those guys that immediately the knee jerk reaction. I wonder again, Jefferson. We talked about like how far is he going to fall potentially with no Kirk Cousins. Tajay Spears, a guy I have not been drafting at all, but now that Pollard's there, if he starts going where he should have been going, yeah, maybe this is where I start to get my exposure for sure.
Are you one of those guys that's benefiting? Are you grabbing any Zamir White, or I guess you haven't? We've only done one draft since, but will you be grabbing any Zamir White now that Josh Jacobs is out of the picture?
Yeah, I think absolutely. I mean, he showed he can definitely carry the load. I landed him over the weekend on pick like 130, like plus 20 is ADP. I just saw him sitting there like, yeah, what if Jacobs does leave? And now Jacobs is gone. I wonder, where did he end up going in our draft? Because he showed he could carry the load. He had 3 straight 100-yard games to close it out. At the combine transcript, their GM said, yeah, we really like what Zamir did. He proved he could be a lead guy. He did say that he wants multiple backs, and it's a position that, you need to have multiple guys, but who doesn't say that at this point? So yeah, I think Zamir White's a great name to toss out there. Someone's market we should be keeping our eyes out on. And somebody, if he's still going after the 100s, yes, they could absolutely draft a rookie. But that's the thing, is like knowing that it's not a great rookie class. There's really only 2 to 3 rookies that could potentially land somewhere and just overtake a backfield. And maybe not even that at this point. So I think when the free agency dust settles, we're going to have a pretty good, solid know of what the backfields are going to look like. Without too many major players still landing. So yeah, I think Zamir White's a great one to toss out to see what the Raiders do from here on out. Absolutely.
That is one of those names that I will be keeping an eye on over the next couple of weeks and see where the dust settles, and especially when it comes to his ADP.
Absolutely. Well, Wolfpack, thank you again. There's almost 400 of you here. This would love to see that on a random Monday here. Hopefully you enjoyed our rapid. I know, Jaws, you're asking here that you got here late. We did about a 30-minute just kind of knee-jerk reaction. We went through all the major signings so far. We even had a few break while we were live. So, yeah, I would definitely say rewind to the beginning, catch that recap if you want to hear our take on where the players landed and what our knee-jerk reaction are, because there are some huge – this is as big of a Monday as I can remember in terms of free agency with huge implications. We talked about Jacobs to Green Bay, Kirk Cousins and the impact he's going to have on Atlanta, Saquon Barkley going to Philly. There are some monster movements already in early free agency, so I would definitely recommend rewinding that. We'll definitely do a more in-depth, numbers, statistical breakdown, and all that as all the dust does finally settle. But the knee-jerk reactions are oftentimes just as important to know what your gut is feeling too. So go and check that out for sure. I'll be updating all my rankings, both best ball-wise and redraft-wise, at rosestreetjournal.com. I'll tweet it out at rosestreetwolf. You guys can find that as soon as it goes live there. And on your way out, if you don't mind hitting that thumbs up button to continue to help us grow, the likes, the shares, the retweets, all those follows, everything really, really helps us out. We're going to be live every Monday here moving forward at 4 p.m. doing these drafts. We won't always have, obviously, free agency fodder to be discussing, but we'll always try to have one little topic before we start and then dive into the drafts with that topic in mind. So always a blast, Mo. Any last parting words before we head out?
Just glanced over at my phone. Looks like I have 100 Twitter alerts. So looking forward to diving back in to see what's been going on this last hour and a half.
Hell yeah. Can't wait to see what else we have to unpack next Monday, 4 p.m. Eastern time, guys. Thanks again so much for being here. In a world full of fantasy sheep, be the wolf. Later, guys.